Ladies and gentlemen, whenever I talk about the Durham probe special counsel, people say, oh, here we go. Nothing's ever going to happen. Watch the segment prior to this one. There's 5 counts that I talk about on the segment prior to this one. The Steele subsource has been indicted under 5 counts. John Durham is the lead prosecutor now. He didn't say a word in the Sussman trial because he thought it was a slam dunk. He learned from the mistakes made during that trial. Okay, Sussman was a high-powered D.C. attorney, and anyway, they already got Mark Elias and Robbie Mook to point the finger at Hillary Clinton for the first time ever in the history of mankind. That alone is enough to score that a victory for the Durham probe special counsel, but you didn't get the indictment or the conviction. Fine. He's going to get a conviction here, and this is right when the Federal Bureau of Investigation is trying desperately to indict Trump. They might actually do so. They might get Trump, an innocent man who didn't commit a crime, on some kind of technicality simply to knock him out of 24. It won't work. He's now currently above mashed potato brains 2.2 points in Real Clear Politics in an average of polls, because in 2019, Trump had household median incomes at record highs. Poverty was at record lows. That's according to CNN. You could look at all the data in the St. Louis Fed or any of the economic data in 2019 and 2018. Under Trump, you had people without college degrees making more than ever. You had record low in poverty. The economy was growing. It was growing so much that we could actually engage in tariffs against China as a tactic and a long-term strategy. Very soon they'll overpass this, but surpass us in terms of economic might. That's another story. Okay? Trump, in many ways, put the country first. He put the economy first. In terms of foreign policy, he removed us from never-ending counterinsurgency conflicts in numerous regions of the world. Obviously, Democrats and never-Trump Republicans are up in arms. Obviously, they don't like that. They would much rather have the wonderful recession we're having now that's going to unfortunately get to a much worse situation in terms of the economy. So hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. Hit subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel and also H.A. Goodman's other channel. I want to read you this. Judge rejects Danchenko effort to use classified information Durham trial. That's actually a huge victory for the Durham probe special counsel, and here's why. It's almost certain this man, Danchenko, didn't really, truly deceive the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Federal Bureau of Investigation wanted any pretext to go after Trump. That's how Sussman got off the hook. Sussman wasn't convicted because even though his text message that Durham didn't get soon enough actually states he's not being paid by anybody when he's actually being paid by somebody, the James Baker, Comey's top legal counsel, was not deceived. The jury didn't think that he was actually deceived. Okay, that's the issue here. Nobody on the planet believes that anyone at the Federal Bureau of Investigation was duped into investigating Trump. Now, the Steele dossier is a little bit different from the Alpha Bank story, which was nothing, which was a fabricated allegation against Trump that both Mark Elias and Robbie Mook stated that Hillary Clinton made up and gave to media. That was, in court, that surprised me, okay? But anyway, and that's the first time ever, and I want a Hillary Trump 2024. I want a Hillary Clinton Donald Trump 20. I want to relive this. Just to let you, really 2016, because we need to do away with 2016 once and for all and have a rematch between Clinton and Trump. But understand something. Trump is going to run even if he's indicted. And he's going to get half the electorate also, because half the electorate, and even Democrats, will know that they just indicted Trump because they wanted to go after somebody they didn't like. We had record highs in household median income, record lows in poverty. It was a record low in poverty. If you're like a far-left socialist, you should love Trump. You should love him. The whole point of being a socialist or a leftist is to care about poor people. It's the only reason. It's like the main reason. That's the main selling point to being a morally superior liberal Democrat. I care about the poor. You make people poor with your terrible policies. So inflation is at like 8 to 9%. We can go on forever. It's going to get worse, unfortunately. Hit subscribe to the Stock Market Crash channel. Read my article in the Federalist. And that's below. And watch the Stock Market Crash playlist. I've been predicting all of this, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately. I want to read you this really quickly. A federal judge rejected an effort by Igor Danchenko to use certain classified information in the upcoming trial brought by special counsel John Durham against the alleged main source for the British Christopher Steele dossier. This is a Washington Examiner article. There were dueling sealed motions by the prosecution and defense this month. Danchenko was charged last year with 5 counts of making false statements to the Bureau. Durham says the comments were about the information Danchenko provided for the Steele dossier. Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz concluded that the Steele subsource eventually undermines Steele's unfounded claims of a well-developed plot between the Trump and the Kremlin. Okay, the whole thing was made up. You have to understand, ladies and gentlemen, by the way, Durham gets a conviction. It's really game over for any attempt against Trump. Now, they could still indict. See, this is the thing. They could still indict Trump. The fact that it would be an obvious partisan hit job against Orange Man is irrelevant. Okay? The whole point here is that slowly but surely, the absurd fabricated hoax, which was that Trump worked with the Kremlin, which never happened. Even James Clapper in the ODNI report said he was only confident. The DHS report, there was a warranty disclaimer, and he told Chuck Todd in 2017, in May of, it was March or, it was April or May of 2017, oh, we don't have any evidence that Trump worked with. They never indicted Trump on colluding with a foreign power because it never happened. It was completely fabricated by the Steele dossier purchased by Clinton. And the dossier, we're finding out, well, we already knew, but was just baseless allegations from an operative, political operative, the Steele subsource. But they weren't. It wasn't even it wasn't even a source. The whole thing, everyone on the planet knows that Christopher Steele and Fusion GPS and the Federal Bureau of Investigation and Democrats in the Clinton campaign and media wanted to undermine and tank Trump's presidency. That's it. Everyone on the planet knows this. This is not rocket science. Okay, you know the writers at the New Yorker and the Atlantic can deceive themselves into believing that democracy was being protected by a dossier purchased by Trump's direct political rivals. Had he purchased a dossier against Clinton or mashed potato brains Joe, he wouldn't need to with either Hunter or Bill. But that's another story. They would never stand for it. They would never stand for it in a million years. But let's say they indict Trump prior to October 11th. Okay, and then Durham gets an the conviction here. They're not going to convict Trump of anything. He's a former president. So you might say, like, I've been saying to myself for a long time, they could never do that. He's a former president. They set a precedent for Republicans to investigate outgoing Democratic president. They don't care. Democrats, one thing about the morally superior, wonderful, highly educated liberal Democrats is that the arrogance and the hubris and the narcissism fuels and bolsters the cognitive dissonance combined with the ignorance of just not knowing the corruption within their political party. And so they think they could never lose late night and Jimmy Kimmel and the Washington Post. There's going to be a day, ladies and gentlemen, where the Washington Post eventually sides with Trump or a Republican. They did with Bush. The media and intelligence officials will slither towards political power. Okay, that's what drives them. It's not truth. It's not democracy. It's political influence and money, honey. And so you get that from political influence. It's lucrative to be apoplectic and hysterical against Trump. Very lucrative. People say, like, I used to be the biggest Bernie Sanders booster on the internet. And then, like, some people said, oh, he did it. This was according to the Huffington Post, and the Washington Post called me the unofficial scribe of Sanders' most hardcore voters, according to the Washington Post. And then some people said, oh, I became a supporter of Trump for money. It's like, no, there's less money. There's less money supporting Trump. But I do so because I want a great economy. Oh, I'm so sorry. I want a wonderful economy and an anti-war foreign policy. He's not a pacifist, but he's much better than Democrats. And so you say, like, people say, like, oh, well, we can go on forever. Look, the whole point is The classified information that Danchenko wanted almost certainly exonerates him. The problem is that the dossier, at least on some counts, the problem is that the dossier was a political hit job. And this Steele subsource, they're going to get him on at least one of 5 counts, and then that undermines any attempt at convicting Trump, even if they indict him. You have to understand, if to my 10-minute crowd, if you've watched this to the end, tell people, or don't tell anybody, but it's like understand that Trump could very well get indicted. He will win a court trial, but he would actually get more popular. And the Durham Probe Special Counsel also is a huge deal in that. Give me your thoughts.